Welcome to Marked Close One, where we talk about how sales and marketing work together. We skip the theory and business school buzzwords to give you practical strategies you can use today to fill your pipeline and close deals faster. Let's get to it.
Hey everyone, thank you again for tuning in to Mark Close One. This is our third episode. I've got Mark Stafford here again from Ablaze Media. Mark, thank you.
Hello there.
This one we're going to be diving into basically the difference between pretty marketing versus profitable marketing, and
John,
kind of that trap.
I hate this topic. I like pretty things. I like them so much.
Well, it's that perfectionist trap that you are so well defining right now that we wanted to kind of go over. And I mean, in this particular instance, kind of the theme of all of this is like overproducing marketing can cause a lot of stuff. It can cause delays of launch. You can have it where either particular people or departments have that fear of being off brand. And it's the kind of overarching game of clarity is much more important than simply just cleverness. You had a different kind of a facial expression there. I think I hit a nerve with that one.
Well, there's so many things I think about this. I could tell so many stories of projects I've gotten into that, like, man, we are getting so nitpicky on this project that I think we're all going to die. And you know, when I start getting into the 15th revision of a project, I start thinking, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to get this out of revisions, and that makes me lose money, and it makes the customer actually lose money too. And
I think you were getting ready to literally hit my very first question I was going to have for you. Like, can you kind of tell me about a time that something got held back, and because it wasn't perfect, and then like how it cost you, or I'm guessing from where this conversation is getting ready to go, how it cost your customer? Maybe both.
Yeah. Well, I could probably give story after story after story. Let me hit on a few.
All right.
I had a logo project for a Christian school that they started off saying they wanted this thing that was Corinthian and, you know, sort of, you know, like it looked at like it was out of Athens. And so I made them these kind of Athens Corinthian kind of logos. And they said, no, we want something that's more flowy now. We want something flowy and modern. Like Corinthian and modern are two very different things. So I'm like, okay, all right, I'll make you
only a couple thousand years.
Yeah, I mean, they have nothing to do with each other. Okay, well, now I think we want something that's more serious. Like, so I went through 25 logos, and this was back in the day because they were an old school organization. They actually wanted physical presentations. So I printed them on pieces of foam core. I put them on easels, you know, that kind of presentation. And they nope. And what they ended up going with, it was something that looked Catholic, although they were not a Catholic school, and they didn't even understand that what they had chosen was Catholic. And I every time I see the logo that they chose, it just makes my mind just explode. I have this one lady. Oh, and this is the worst for designers. And this one lady, she says, well, you know, I kind of thought about being a designer one day when I kind of, you know, but then I decided to do something else. But I'm really good with design. I know what I don't like. You know, I'm really good at knowing what I don't like. Oh, that's the worst thing. Like, oh man, just let's buckle up. Here we go. And I made a flyer for her once. I think there were 15 revisions of this flyer. She's like, oh, can you put this word over here? Can you put this period over there? Can you put this, make that picture like 3% bigger? Like, you know what? We got to get this thing done. We have a deadline, right? You know, we have a deadline at the end of the week. We got to get this thing out there. There's going to be almost no noticeable difference,
right,
with these changes that you want. And anyway, it ends up making. And the last thing I tell you, I had another client that I worked for them for 12 years. Every single time I would put out a print piece for them, they would change the copy during the design process. Like, why can't you write the copy without any errors in the copy before you give it to me? It blows my mind. And because sometimes taking out one sentence means I have to relay out the whole page.
Right.
And come on, just give me the copyright the first time. Now, don't change copy when we're in the design phase, you know. So I could go on and on, but those are pet peeves of mine. Darn it.
It's kind of funny that you're hitting these because you're like pre-leading the questions that I had written down for you on that one, because I've seen that myself, you know, dealing with the sales side. I'm always looking at kind of from a third person perspective, but I was like, where do you see teams usually getting stuck? I mean, is it from the messaging? Is it the design? Is it the approval process? Is it, you know, they've got some sort of branding czar that has problems about everything, and that color is not the correct shade, or is it something like with the website rebuild? Like, who's usually the culprit in this mess?
Well, I think that not knowing their messaging is huge. You know that a company doesn't know their message. You know how? You know that they don't know what their message is? You know how to tell?
How's that?
They say one of two things. Where you're a one-stop shop. No, that's that you have spent no time on your messaging. Or the one that is the biggest culprit for all your fill-in-the-blank needs. It's so serious that second tagline, for all of your electrical needs, for all of your plumbing needs, for all of your podcasting needs. It's so serious that there's been organizations I've worked for who will tell people you cannot use that tagline. You cannot use it. We will absolutely push you off the air or push you out of our magazine if you use that tagline, because you have spent no time understanding what it is that you do. So I think that's the biggest symptom of an underlying cause, that we have not spent time understanding what actually sets us apart from our competitors. I think design approvals do get hung up a lot of times if somebody's being really nitpicky about things. I think that branding can be an issue if somebody makes their brand with AI. It oftentimes won't translate into various different types of media. So, or they haven't really thought about their color scheme, or they change. Like, we really think it'd be pretty if we used yellow today. I'm like, you're a mechanic shop. What's bright yellow about your mechanic shop? They haven't really thought about what colors are, color theory, what a color is, what it communicates to people, how it makes people feel when they see that color, how they make that color associate with a brand of some kind. So that is something that a designer, a branding expert has thought through. And then what wastes a lot of time too is when you hand something to a designer and there isn't a cohesive logo and brand that they can follow as they're going through and designing something. So now they're guessing, and you can have stuff that is all over the map, that has all kinds of different messaging to it, because nobody's sat down and say, this is what our company is, this is what our company looks like, these are the things that we talk about, and this is the main message we want to communicate in everything that we're wanting to put out there. So I could say, is there a usual culprit? Yes, a failure to plan. That's the usual culprit.
I'm going to put the entire thing that you just said, from like the messaging and design and approval, I'm going to make up my own term. I don't know if this really is, but let's just say business or brand integrity. Okay.
Okay. Brand integrity.
How do you balance that?
How about brand integrity?
That's a little bit too much, I think. I'm just going to keep it as the two words.
Brand integrity.
How do you balance that brand integrity? Maybe. But how can you balance that with when you're, from the sales end saying there's like, we need pipeline now?
Yeah, and that's tough. It's a balancing act, right? Because everything does need to look like it's part of the brand, or else you will have things that just don't look like they match each other. When you get a lot of different hands in there, unless you have like one agency that's handling everything for you and they kind of understand your branding and what you look like and who you appeal to, and they just do it for you. If you, as a business owner, if you're trying to have a number of different pieces of collateral across a lot of different mediums that all communicate the same message, it is important that you understand how to manage all of that, or else you're going to have a lot of different messages out there that may or may not, fit your company. So yes, it's important. And at the same time, it's important to just get stuff done, that we just have to get it out there. There's deadlines. There's sales that have to be made. If the sales come out of the pipeline because we're fussing over whether this purple is the right shade of purple or not, the company can die over purple. Well, why would you let that happen? So, those are extreme cases, right? But yet it's not too far off. We need to get stuff done, but you do need to get it done at a reasonable quality level too. So it's both and, right?
Well, with where you landed off on that one, I guess I've got a statement for you. I know this is kind of already a pet peeve, but I want to see the reaction kind of live on this one. It was like, if it's clear, it sells. If it's clever, it might win an award. Like, how does that like strike your heart when I say that there?
Well, I do subscribe to a graphic design magazine, and although I run a marketing company,
I'm judging you right now.
Yeah. Well, I am a creative at the end of the day. So although I run a marketing company, I understand how to put together marketing collateral. I do really love great design, and I go to things like art museums. I do love great works of art, and I love great design. Any kind of good artwork is going to help you to have an emotion that maybe even prompts you to action. So a lot of artists and museums, they want to create an emotion in you that stirs up nostalgia, or it stirs up outrage for a social injustice, or it makes you feel peaceful. They're thinking about different emotions that they want to stir up within a person. That's great in the museum world. In the sales world, I don't want somebody to look at my ad and be like, man, that makes me feel real peaceful, unless you're selling peace.
I just want the lead.
Yeah, we need to make them have a different kind of emotion. The emotion is they hit on a nerve, and I'm going to call them because I think they can solve my problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a different kind of artwork. It's still artwork that creates an emotion and compels people to action, but it's a very specific kind of emotion and a very specific kind of action. That's the difference between fine art and commercial art.
Makes sense. Let me get you out of the museum for a second. I want to get back into the sales side of this marketing conversation.
Fair enough.
What is the minimum viable funnel, would you say, for a company that was wanting to start like lead generation, building revenue on that one? And let me throw this caveat as well. If I just had it where it was, you had to launch in 14 days, blue collar or white collar, what's that process? How is it different? What would be the initial things that you would do from that minimum viable funnel?
I mean, in 14 days, it's going to be probably both for the same. I'd have to think about that a little bit, and it would depend a little bit on the company. But right away, it's going to be the same couple of things are true for every company. No, number one, I would build a website right away. It doesn't have to be a huge website. I would at least get a landing page, or maybe a small, what I would call a microsite. So it's a front page, a services page, a contact us page, just a real basic website. I would get that up right away. I would get a Google My Business profile right away. Now, you're going to have a website in order to get a Google My Business profile, so that's why you have to do them in that order. That Google My Business profile is really important. I would go out and get directory listings right away, so that all across the internet, everything's pointing to the same name, address, and phone number. So that's super important. I would put together a basic CRM. MailChimp is good enough to get started, and have that as a place where I can collect all of my leads. I can have a form that dumps them into something like MailChimp, and then has an automation in the background to follow up on the forms and follow up with any new contacts that I have. And then I would be probably working the phones and possibly sending out postcards just to let people know that I'm starting a new business. And I would cut through all the algorithms by some old school tactics, phones and postcards. And then lastly, and this would be last on the list, I'd make sure that I have a social media account at every single social media place imaginable, so nobody else takes that. And then I would start trying to build some traffic on the, inviting all my friends to that social media platform, inviting a lot of people in, putting some basic content there. But I would definitely do that last. That's how I would do it in 14 days. And 14 days would be a stretch to get all that done. But those are the things I think are most important, about in that order.
Well, so it sounds like really from that particular perspective, you're pushing everything to the landing page or that microsite or whatnot that you've gotten there. Let's just say it's a landing page in this perspective. Let's remove the 14-day variable on this one. Like, what are the stakes? Well, let's say the top 3 conversion killers that you would have for that landing page. What do you see there?
Yeah. Okay. So a landing page is supposed to be one page for one product with one call to action. That's all it's supposed to be. On that landing page, it should have your logo in the top left corner. It should have your phone number in the top right corner. It really should not have a menu other than those two things. There should be a value proposition right underneath that. That value proposition is pushing on a pain point. This is the problem that we solve, and it's very clear. The messaging there is very important. We solve one problem, and this is it. And this is why you came to the site. And there needs to be a clear call to action on the opening plane, right in the above the fold, we call it. Usually that's a form, that's a calendar to join, that's a button to click. The thing that you want them to do needs to be above the fold. Jonathan, I tell you what, there's a lot of guys in my space that they will see landing pages where the form or the calendar is like all the way down at the bottom of the page, and they will call up people and say, hey, if we can double your leads, would that be worth $5,000 to you? They say, yeah. And what they do is they take that form and they move it up to the top of the page.
Goodness.
And they're like, okay, $5,000, please. And sure enough, it'll double their leads. So above the fold is very important. A lot of people don't ever get past that. As you get down past the fold, it needs to clearly talk about what you do. There should be a combination of text and icons with text. There needs to be social proof. And so social proof are companies you've worked for, case studies if you have them, and testimonials about, satisfied customers. If those things are all on that site, then it's got a much, much better chance of converting than if those things are missing.
Interesting. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That's interesting on that one, because having a clear call to action, having it of where all of that stuff is above the fold, I guess I really wouldn't have thought too much about that personally. At the end of the day, it's like, I just want the lead. I want to be able to talk to that person. I want to be able to then, go through the sales process and so on. But it's getting them there and those little tweaks that really kind of make that main change so that I have, more swings at bat.
Yeah. And with that being said, I mentioned on the last episode, Microsoft Clarity. Microsoft Clarity will show you how far somebody scrolls down your page. And I would guarantee for 80% of the sites that are out there, I'm making up statistics now, most people don't get past that opening point. And so you can see how far people on average will scroll down the site. And that's really good information to know.
You got to make it say, you can't just have like a really vague number on that one, Mark. It's 81.74 plus or minus.
Well, I'm just making up statistics. So
just making it on the fly.
They're mostly educated guesses, I guess, because I've run it on enough sites to where I go, yep, they didn't make it past the fold. Oh, didn't make past the fold. Oh, here's one. They actually scrolled down. Okay, that's interesting. But it's just not usually the case. Usually people don't scroll down too far. Sometimes the marketing guys can get a little bit ethereal on what they put together. And they can put together, something that the fonts are really cool. And you do think, man, that is a cool font. And they'll put like a cool raven on there, and it's got a cool font and a raven. And like, dang, this thing looks sick. And it's not working at all. So how do you know that the marketing message was too fluffy? It was maybe a little bit too artistic and not really something that is going to convert.
Well, it's kind of, there's a couple different things that kind of come to mind. I think one of the first ones that I worked for GoDaddy, and I was in their premier sales team is what they called it. I think that was the time of when they launched the rep in a box. And it was interesting on how that kind of changed the persona of the people that we were talking to. And I've got some guesses of where I would think that kind of would come from. They basically just said, call, we're the rep in the box. It's removed the individuality of the person. And we, for the most part, just simply became help desk. And even though that I was on the sales team, from the flood of calls and stuff of that nature that was coming into that call center, everybody is kind of handling that. And it just kind of shifted the persona. We were getting a lot of dials, but I don't think it was actually resorting into the revenue that they were initially expecting with some of the other marketing engagement that they put in place.
Yeah. Well, you talk about this book that you're reading right now, the Challenger Sale, I think is what it's called. And he talks about this idea of like there being a problem that you solve, and that prospects, a good prospect will lean into that problem that you solve, and that people who do that, sometimes it's 2x, sometimes 4x sales when they actually are selling to solve problems rather than selling to like a category of lists of things that we do because we're so impressed with all of the different things that we do in the company. How have you seen that play out? The idea of getting prospects to close on solve problems.
Probably the best example I can provide on this one. I've been in solution sales for most of the time that I've been in sales, and at least with this particular company, we dealt with data migration. So it was on the tech side, it was in automations, integrations as a service. But what we would see is that we would have a customer that would come in with a problem, and I really didn't care what the particular problem was. If it had anything to deal with data movement of any sort, there was like a 99% chance that I could solve it. There was very few times of where it's like, yeah, we can't help you there. You need to go maybe to this other company. But once we had that initial conversation, what I really like to do is I had these other just simple let's call them explanations or use cases or however you really want to define it, that I knew that all customers would have a similarity of this issue that they would run across with. If it was something that was more ad hoc, if it was something that was maybe cross-departmental, of where other people of their same level in different departments within an organization was having that same problem. And it allowed me to kind of build that all out. And it made it so that the calls were consistent on my end. I would know of the particular issue that they would have. I would know of the primary issues that all businesses would have. We dealt with a lot of different markets and stuff, and so I would know maybe the particular pain points that shipping might have, or if it might be in the manufacturing space or financial or healthcare or so on. And it would allow me to have these like simple explanations, these simple use cases. And if it didn't exactly strike what they were running up against, it was close enough to be able to continue the conversation to build out the sale with other use cases that we would then, be able to converse about at that point.
I had this lady call me a couple days ago. She was a UX developer. You know what that is? It's a user experience.
Right.
So it's a little bit different than a conversion rate optimization, but still it's kind of the idea of somebody who is an expert at going through and putting together a website in a way that gives the user the best experience on the website. And she directed me to one of the sites that were one of hers. And I didn't know how to tell her this, but I'm like, this is the sloppiest website I ever saw. You should not be in this business. I'm not sure what you're doing.
Right.
This is a disaster. And it was little details. The graphics were a couple of pixels off. Things were not quite centered right. Things were too close to the edges, really. It was off-putting. It was kind of visually unpleasing. And I think, okay, so we got one extreme, right, where she kind of put a good enough website out there. There are companies that get so granular in this blue has to be this color of blue. This red's really hard to match right. This red, it cannot be too red, it can't be too pink, it can't be too purple, it has to be this exact shade of red. And if it's not that, we're sending it back. And that usually means in the printing process, we have to actually put a Pantone color in the printing press. And that whole process, it's a one-off job with this Pantone color involved. It's usually 2 or 3 times the amount of money, and it's an uber premium kind of piece.
Wow.
Or sometimes it's like an organization wants to approve every single period and comma on a social media post to get it absolutely pristine. There's some companies that can afford that, right? Mm-hmm. And nobody wants slop. So how do you feel about marketing assets that are good enough versus premium, right? This is tough because you don't want slop, but premium's really, really expensive. So how do you deal with that as a sales guy?
This is probably going to hurt you from the marketing side on this one, Mark. From the sales end, as long as it's hitting the ideal persona and it's not, the messaging is not like derailing what this sales conversation is getting ready to be, I literally don't care. I've never really looked at it that way. I mean, I don't care if whatever this premium version is. It makes no difference to me, because what happens is you're focusing on the marketing perspective and getting people to actually just raise their hands so that we can have that initial conversation. As soon as we have that initial conversation, marketing is gone. It's now completely that's just in my world. And if you put some stuff in to be able to build out that conversation in your marketing material, fantastic. If you did stuff that was going to kind of derail the general process, then I don't care if it's good enough or if it's premium. I'm going to have a problem with it. But I feel like this is where the two worlds do separate, is that your marketing material, again, don't care if it's good enough or premium, it just gets them to the table to have that conversation. And I more than likely probably never even looked at it. I mean, it was fantastic. I judged it, and it was very lovely, and made me have that peaceful feeling or whatever that you were talking about earlier. But yeah, I paid literally no attention. I'm lying. Something
about artwork makes me feel things. I don't care about that noise.
Exactly.
My goodness. Well, okay, now, so with that being said, What marketing collateral actually makes a deal move forward? And what things do you wish that the marketing department would just stop making?
Well, you're hitting into personal pet peeves at the moment. I will say my proper sales answer is that I think it's kind of vague. I think it kind of depends on the particular market. My personal pet peeves, I hate when somebody from marketing tries to script my sales process.
Oh,
and they try to like pre-assume of where I'm going to go within a discovery call or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I, in most cases, absolutely despise PowerPoint conversations, presentations. Again, it's one of those things of where you're, at least with the way that I look at it and the way that I would train my account executives on, is I want them to be able to understand the product. I would even go to that second step of where if they were able to answer the initial question that this prospect had, I wanted them to be able to also to answer whatever that follow-up is. So it's getting a little bit more on the technical end. But I mean, if you look at it from a perspective of where the prospect is kind of evaluating that salesperson, if they keep on saying, well, I will have to get back with you that because I simply don't know. Those would be the things that that really bothered me. Now, if the collateral was able to answer those initial questions, or, it would be able to have quick lookups or something of that nature, that's probably fine enough. I would still want my account executive to have it in their head. But going back to the pet peeve side of this, is that I very much look at it as the way that Mike Tyson said, is that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. I feel like every sales method, or I feel like every sales process has a particular method until they get a, unexpected question. Maybe where they pre-scripted that the customer was going to have a problem and they don't have that problem. They've got something else.
Right.
I think that's where it really causes problems. And what I would say is the adverse to that, the salesperson needs to know what objectives that they're trying to accomplish. They need to be able to explain their product and they need to be able to say it eloquently. I would also add that they need to be able to shut up after they say it eloquently. They need to be able to have proper follow-up. They need to be able to help that customer through that process and get into that decision. But now I'm getting on my soapbox.
All right, I'm going to tell you my little pet peeve, and maybe I'm just being like an old guy for this, but I'll go to these networking meetings, and I have nice business cards. I do spend some money on those because when people get my business cards, they're super tactile, and they're like, "Ooh, gave me a gift here." Like, yes, I'm giving you a gift of my business card. It's very nice. And they'll look at it. It's like it got raised UV and things on it. And they're like, man, this is quite a thing. And then when they turn around, they say, well, I got this thing where you could scan with your phone and you just tap it to your phone and it'll just put my contact information in there. I'm like, it never works. Like, just spend $10 and get a business card, for crying out loud. I think you're being too cheap. Anyway, that's one of my little pet peeves. And maybe it's just kind of, I'm an old guy, and I don't have an Apple phone. But no, I digress.
Shame on you. I want to lob this one at you, Mark, because I think this is going to be, I think this would be kind of a good dialogue, because I would want to assume that marketing and sales sees this slightly differently. If we had to choose between better messaging or better follow-up, what would you argue produces more revenue?
That's such a good question. Both?
I would have to say the same thing. I mean, from my end, I would want to argue and say that, once the lead comes in, follow-up is a very massive thing about being able to keep that prospect engaged and being able to finally get them to a decision. Hopefully it'd be yes. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's kind of the exact same thing for you on the marketing front. You're at the top of the sales funnel. You're trying to get these people to start jumping into the sales funnel. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it was a 51-49, I think I would put the 51 on the follow-up. But man, it's just not that much. Like, they're so close to each other because you got the wrong messaging. You'll either get the wrong people in the funnel or you won't get people into the funnel at all. And that doesn't matter how good your follow-up is. You got the wrong people or no people to do follow-up with. So yeah, it's really hard to say, because unfortunately what happens a lot of times is it's more extreme than 49 and 51. It's like, right. It's 90% into messaging and all of the leads fall through the cracks. Well, that's terrible. Or they have this amazing, follow-up plan, and they're all sitting there twiddling their thumbs because
Right.
the messaging is just not right. And so usually it's extreme. And I would say, I would say having, in that case, I'd rather have leads and be crappy at follow up. But
Yeah, we'll put yours
if
as
they're
the 51.
close, yeah, if it's close, I would rather have, fewer leads and great follow up than having, more leads and not great follow up, I guess. I think the follow up ultimately closes a sale. But that's a tough one. I don't know. I'd have to think about that some more, I think. And that's the problem is that a lot of people will take out ads and they don't have any follow up process. And like, why are you taking out ads? You don't have the things in place you need in order to even take out an ad at this point.
That is exactly it. That's something that we see a lot.
All the time.
But let's do this. Let's wrap this up here. I think this was a great conversation, especially from just, again, the pretty marketing versus the actual profitable marketing and kind of the general sales process.
I like it pretty.
Right.
Can it be pretty and good?
Well, I think that's the reason why you've got a job would be what I would say there.
Oh, maybe.
Right. But guys, just thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you on the next one.